for Rockfin to come on and we'll be good to go. All right. Right on time. Neat.
Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Salvati.
All right. Happy Friday, guys. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesdays, Thursday, and Fridays. Quick shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. Whoop, whoop. And I want to give a couple of shout outs to people in the chat. Guys, it is Friday. Get pumped, get amped. I'm ready to do the damn thing. All right. What's going on? Dabby Dab says, yep, you're 2 hours early. I'm not sure who they're talking to, but welcome. Shout out to Hannah G says, Sabby Fridays are best. Thank you. Greetings, Miguel says, happy Friday. Peace. What's going on, Jay? Our brand, I give him some credit. I feel like he's trying to now have that positive impact. All right. Shout out to Angela. Hello, beautiful people. And all presidential speeches are cringe, but this one is particularly so. Yes, this one was, wait till we get into that tonight. Wait until we get into the speech, man. Aye. What's going on, Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says, Doobie Door 2024. Shout out to Gamer, says, hi, y'all. Greetings, Sean Miller, says, Doobie Doo 100. Greetings, Terry, says, hello, RBN fam. What's going on, Bad Cookies? Good day, everyone. Let's all give respect where respect is due. Joe Biden passed the Student Loan Forgiveness Act and also managed to convince Luke Skywalker to the dark side. Emperor Palpa Joe. Okay, so I actually have a picture I'm going to show you about that tonight. That should be pretty funny. Shout out to Roman, says, just in time, let's do this, fam. What's going on? Eric T. Red, who's a Sabby member, says, hey there, all lefty friends. What's going on? Al says, hello, everyone. Shout out to Sebastian. Good day, y'all. What's going on, Gore, son of none? Evening fams, let's feed our brain and find relief in the form of a welcome distraction from hell. I think you meant distraction. Distraction from hell. What's going on, Rodrigo? Sabby Sab streaming tonight. Yes. I have something to tell you about that. I got something to tell you about that. Shout out to Carrie, says, just press the like, hit that like button, guys. That helps me with the algorithm. Shout out to RIP Shireen Abu Aklek, says, yo. What's going on, Leroy, who's a Sabby member, says, hey. What's going on, Jay Rich, who's a Sabby member, said, what up, Sabby Doobie do the damn thing. All right. I'm pumped and excited for tonight, guys. Greetings, Billy, says, hey, gang, new to this page. Welcome, Billy. Nice to meet you. Shout out to Zach, says, hey, Sabby, hey, all, hey, Sab. Do you have a scheduled call-in day or is it on the fly? It's scheduled. My call-in days are Thursdays and Fridays. Yeah, so it should be on the calendar there. I don't know. The app's kind of glitchy sometimes. Shout out to Winchester says, hi, Sabby. Hello. Greetings, female rage. Hey, Sabby. Jimmy's show just ended. Maybe his stream won't take away from yours then. And shout out to female who is a Sabby member as well. Okay. Quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. And I know, guys, I need to format this better. I don't know. If one of you are really good at formatting, maybe you can help me out with this. But all of their names are listed here. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So, yes, Rodrigo brought up something. I'll address that really quick. I was not going to stream tonight because I was actually going to be in New York at Camp Dada, but then something happened. I'll show it in a second, Eric. Literally, the other night, I think that was the 1st. That might have been early yesterday or 31st. Either way, I was actually, it was that time of the month where it's time to pay all the bills. And not the other time of the month. I should be clear. Sorry. Where it's time to pay all the bills. Went online into my bank account, and lo and behold, somehow, some way, someone had transferred money to their self from my accounts. Wasn't me. And that's including my checking account and my saving account. Multiple transfers. And what was really strange is that I contacted the bank, and I've been with them for years, and I said, you guys didn't give me an alert, didn't send me any kind of email or anything to alert me that money had been taken, like multiple transfers have been transferred to someone who's external, not even a part of the same bank. That wasn't a red flag to you? And, they apologized and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but come on. Like, when have I ever transferred money out of my savings account to someone who has an external account? I've never done that in all these years. So you didn't think it was strange that someone went into my account and made multiple transfers, by the way, not just one, multiple transfers to their account 2 nights in a row. If I was going to transfer money to someone, I would have just done that like one lump sum. Why would I go back in and send you? Oh my God. So it's a mess. So my accounts were compromised. So I didn't feel safe driving down to New York today if I had no access to my money. So all of my cards are gone. All that stuff has been closed. Then they had to do the claims to get the money back. Luckily, I caught it within 24 hours. So, I mean, that's a good thing because they were able to do the transfer quicker. So as of today, I got my money back, but I don't know, like, had it been another week and it wasn't that time to pay bills, because I don't spend a lot of money. So I may not have noticed that as quickly as I did. And it just really strange to me. So they had to close out my accounts, all of them. I have no debit cards now. So if I need money, I have to actually go physically into the bank to the teller to withdraw money. And I have to do that until I get my new debit cards in the mail. So that's what happened to me. That's what happened to me. So I'll be going to Camp Dada tomorrow. But yeah, so that's why I'm here. I was not supposed to stream tonight, but it's just, oh man. It was a scary feeling because, like Terry said, that's effed up. Glad you caught it, Sabby. I'm glad I caught it as quickly as I did, because I don't know, like, it's scary to me because I said that says something about your security system. Like, I don't know. No, it's not a credit union. I see someone asking that question, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm even thinking about maybe I should just switch banks and maybe I should just go to a credit union. But then that's another thing you got to do. So I have to go through all of my automatic payments that usually happen, like PayPal, Google Ads. I have to go through all of that and update all the new information for the new accounts. It's crazy. Hot mess. Hot mess. Worst of it all, the one I was the most concerned about was the mortgage. So I had to call the mortgage company and tell them, yeah, I can't pay you guys because somebody compromised my accounts and took like literally, you guys, like thousands of dollars. Like this is what would go towards my mortgage, my bills. And they said, luckily we have a grace period. So I'm glad that that's okay. But I don't know, man. It makes me feel not safe, you know? It's just very weird, very weird. But they said this is going around a lot. So check your accounts, guys. Check your accounts. Okay. But that being said, let's go ahead and get into tonight's thumbnail. So yeah, tonight it's freaking crazy week, man. Okay. Tonight, we are discussing Russell Brand and Max Blumenthal, Leftism. Interesting discussion on Russell Brand's Under the Skin podcast there. I thought it was pretty cool to see Max on there. So definitely going to talk about that. We're also going to discuss Brett Favre, Mississippi funds. Guys, I saw this story this morning. It's very concerning, especially considering we just talked about the water crisis in Mississippi last night. So we're going to get into that story. And we're also going to discuss Joe Biden's cringe speech. If you have not seen that, you're going to hear about it tonight. So first thing that I want to do, I believe it was Kit from Hardlands Media. He had this picture here. I'm going to share this with you guys. I thought he hit the nail on the head with this. So I'm just gonna, there it is. Yeah. Okay. Yes, this is the one. So how would you describe the visual effects of the speech that Joe Biden had last night? I think Kit really hit the nail on the head. So this is Kit from Hardlands Media. He tweeted this. And Kit said it looked like something from Star Wars. And I have to agree here. When I first saw this, when the speech, I was like, first of all, who picked the visual effects? What's with the red and black background? It just looks like, I don't know. So is Joe Biden Emperor, like Emperor Palpatine or something? It definitely gave me like Empire Strikes Back vibes. Like, I don't know. So shout out to Kit from Hardlands Media for that. That was that was spot on. Okay. Oh, whoops. I think I clicked on it. All right. So let's go ahead and get into that speech. So Joe Biden made a primetime speech in Philadelphia about the soul of the nation. And I was thinking about all of the things that are happening to people in this country this year and last year as well. Several things that I felt like as president you could address. But Joe Biden decided this is my opportunity to target one group. Let's get into it. There's a lot we're gonna debunk here.
My fellow Americans, please, if you have a seat, take it. I speak to you tonight from sacred ground in America, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is where America made its Declaration of Independence to the world more than 2 centuries ago with an idea unique among nations, that in America, we're all created equal. This is where the United States Constitution was written and debated. This is where we set in motion the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known. With 3 simple words: we the people, we the people. These 2 documents and the ideas they embody, equality and democracy, are the rock upon which this nation is built.
Let's talk about this idea of democracy here really quick. I would argue that we don't have a true democracy in this country. That's part of the problem. If we had a true democracy, third party candidates, independent candidates wouldn't have to jump through all of these hoops, wouldn't have to jump hurdles just to even get on the ballot, and then only to be removed by Democrats and Republicans. I brought on 2 candidates that have had that happen to them. That's not a true democracy, not in my book. If we had a true democracy, third party candidates and independent candidates would also be able to debate. We don't let them debate. That's not a true democracy. They don't even let us have much of a choice in who we vote for. We think we have a choice. We don't really have a choice. If you think about how this system is set up, if you think about who's propped up and who is pretty much shadow banned from the mainstream media, we don't really have a true democracy. But out of all the things that you could talk about that is going on right now, for example, Jackson, Mississippi is experiencing a water shortage. We talked about this last night. We talked about the crisis that they're dealing with there. So many things you could talk about. He takes this opportunity to talk about saving democracy. I guess to him, that's part of the soul of the nation, to Joe Biden. And then he's going to come after a particular group.
They're how we became the greatest nation on earth. They're why, for more than 2 centuries, America has been a beacon to the world. But as I stand here tonight, equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise. So tonight, I've come to this place where it all began to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our own hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if only we choose it.
What's the deal with the Marines? I believe these are Marines in the background. This looks really weird.
Must never forget, we the people are the true heirs of the American experiment that began more than 2 centuries ago. We the people have burning inside of each of us the flame of liberty that was lit here at Independence Hall. A flame that lit our way through abolition, the Civil War, suffrage, the Great Depression, world wars, civil rights. That sacred flame still burns. Now in our time, as we build an America that is more prosperous, free, and just. That is the work of my presidency, a mission I believe in with my whole soul. But first, we must be honest with each other and with ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Now, I want to be very clear.
Let's talk about that for a second. He says it's not normal, but it actually is. When has America been a peaceful country? America has always been a violent country, especially when you compare us to some of our peers overseas. This is the portion here where he starts to go after the Trump supporters, the Trumpers, whatever you want to call them these days. And I think this is a mistake. And I'm going to tell you why. This is not to say that you have to agree with them. But if you're delivering a speech titled Battle for the Soul of the Nation, How are you going to isolate one particular group and expect those individuals to want to come on board and work together for everybody in this country? It does not work that way. You would think that Joe Biden would have learned this lesson from when Hillary Clinton made that statement saying that Trump supporters were deplorables. But no, they don't learn. So the fact that Joe Biden here is telling you that what is happening right now is not normal, it is very normal in this country. It's not like we haven't heard this rhetoric before. I think this is just the first time, maybe within, I don't know, the past 2 decades, where it's been on a main stage, where it's been on a stage for the world to see. But the rhetoric that you hear from people like Donald Trump, the rhetoric that you hear from people who may be Trumpers, none of that rhetoric was new to me and to a lot of people that I know. Trump wasn't the first person to make these kinds of statements. The problem that I think the Democratic Party has is the fact that he was saying the quiet part out loud. That's what they don't like. But make no mistake, don't think that some of those Democrat politicians do not hold some of those same views, because some of them do. I've told you before about the Democrat politicians that are against abortion. We can't continue to say that's just a Republican thing. These are the things I want you to consider when you listen to this speech. So here he goes into his isolation of this group.
Very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans.
Here we go.
And that is a threat to this country. These are hard things. But I'm an American president, not a president of red America, blue America, but of all America.
I would argue that the police state is a threat to Americans in this country, more so than Trump supporters. Especially considering the fact that people like Joe Biden are expanding the police state. I'm not afraid of Trumpers. I'm not afraid of people who support Donald Trump. I'm afraid of the police officer that's driving behind me when I'm just trying to get to work. That's what I'm afraid of. If you take the time and you talk to a lot of people who do support Donald Trump, you can get through to a lot of them on some of the issues if you talk about it in a way where you're not insulting them. This is exactly what Joe Biden is doing. Joe Biden is insulting them. You're not going to get through to them that way. Just speaking from experience, that's not the way to go about it. But you mean to tell me all the things that have happened in this country, let's say the past 3 years, you mean to tell me that the soul of the country was lost because of someone named Donald Trump? I would say the soul of the country is lost because you have a class of people that really have been exploiting working class and poor people in this country for decades. I would say the soul is lost in this country because we really don't have equality here. He said at the beginning of the speech, all men are created equal. We're not all equal here. I think we need to stop saying this. In the reality of things, we're not. We're not treated the same. Look at what is happening. The homeless population has increased. We're still not even increasing the minimum wage. So when you talk about the soul of the nation, how can you talk about that and not address the economic issues that have actually driven people into poverty over the past couple of years? the economic issues that have made it impossible for a lot of people to even start a family or get married or buy a house. How can you talk about the soul of the nation and not address the economic issues that have caused the despair that a lot of people are experiencing? And I think it was pretty much negligent not to even mention it. But instead, he takes this opportunity to attack people who support Donald Trump. This is how I know the Democratic Party is deeply unserious.
And I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell the truth, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful. And here, in my view, is what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. They refuse to accept the results of a free election.
I would also add that, especially the establishment Democrats, they don't accept the will of the people either. Do either parties really accept the will of the people? Because according to the exit polls in 2020, the majority of Americans want health care for everyone in this country. Then why don't we have health care for everyone in this country? Who's not accepting the will of the people right now? I don't think that alone is a MAGA issue. I think that's a corporate issue, and the corporations control the government. This is why they're not doing anything for the American people. So come on, let's be real here.
And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy.
Let's not talk about right to choose, because Joe Biden was not for abortion either. Some people don't remember this. I do. Go back and look at legislation over the years and see how Joe Biden voted in reference to women's rights.
No right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country. They look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots. And they see their MAGA failure to stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections. They tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people. This time, they're determined to succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like Federal Circuit Court Judge Michael Ludwig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy. But while the threat to American democracy is real,
he called them a clear and present danger to our democracy. How are you going to bring people together talking about them like that? Newsflash, not everyone that voted for Donald Trump is racist. Most of the people I know that voted for Donald Trump just did not like Hillary. Some people that voted for Donald Trump actually voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary. So I want you to think about something here, because I want you to realize how they use this term extremist. Because let's remember, even when it came to Bernie Sanders, even the Democrat politicians were calling him extreme. And the polls showed you that that was what the majority of the people wanted. And they were calling Bernie Sanders extreme. Basically, anybody who goes outside of that quote unquote moderate lane per se, they will call them extreme. I would say what's extreme is not helping the people, is choosing to fund corporations when you have so many people living in poverty in the United States. I think that's extreme. Choosing to give billions of dollars to people in Ukraine when you have people in this country right now that are homeless because that has increased, when people in Jackson, Mississippi don't have water, and you're choosing to spend money on the military industrial complex, give money to Ukraine, you're willing to give money to these corporations instead of helping the people. That's what I would call an extremist. Because to me, that does not make any sense unless you're trying to get rid of us anyway. Unless you just want the people who are poor and the people who are working class, unless you just want us to die off anyway. But that's another conversation.
I want to say as clearly as we can, we are not powerless in the face of these threats. We are not bystanders in this ongoing attack on democracy. There are far more Americans from every background and belief who reject the extreme MAGA ideology than those that accept it. And folks, it is within our power, it's in our hands, yours and mine, to stop the assault on American democracy. I believe America is at an inflection point.
He wants to talk about stopping the assault on American democracy. Stop the assault on the American people. Stop the economic assault on the American people. Stop that. Stop the fact that you have all these billionaires that have exploited the American people for decades. And people are working 50, 60 hours a week, multiple jobs just to pay the rent, just to put food on the table. Stop that assault. Let's do that. Because if he wants to talk about assault on the democracy, we don't have any democracy in this country. We don't have true democracy. This is just a way for him to tell you we have to save this democracy. And by the way, all of them have been using this talking point. If you've been paying attention, AOC has been saying it. Ro Khanna has been saying it. They're all talking about saving the democracy. Basically, what that means is they want to make sure that you still come out and vote for the Democratic Party. That's what that really means. That's what that's about. This whole speech here, in my opinion, based on what I heard, had nothing to do with the way that Americans feel in this country about the economic situations that a lot of us are in right now. It really had nothing to do with us. It's not really about us. It's just about helping them win again. That's it. It's just about people like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi sending us text messages, sending us emails saying, give me money, give me your money. That's all they want. Give me your money so we can fundraise while you still struggle to pay your bills.
One of those moments that determine the shape of everything that's to come after. And now, America must choose to move forward or to move backwards, to build a future or obsess about the past, to be a nation of hope and unity and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and of darkness. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies.
I cannot believe this is basically a smear speech. That's all this is. That's all this is. Like, how can you spend this much time? You went all the way to Philadelphia to talk about MAGA Republicans. That's what you wanted to talk about. Can you guys believe this?
But together we can choose a different path. We can choose a better path forward to the future. A future of possibility, a future to build and dream and hope.
That future of possibility would get money out of electoral politics so that you are not answering to corporations and you're actually answering to the American people. That's moving forward. Moving forward is giving everybody health care in this country. Moving forward is making sure that we have pre-K for people in this country. Daycare is expensive, incredibly expensive now. Moving forward is to make sure that we don't have kids in this country that are starving, which we do. We have kids in this country where the only meal that they have is when they go to school, when they get free lunch or free breakfast. I've seen it. Moving forward would be paying people a living wage so that people are not struggling just to get by. Moving forward would be taxing these billionaires what they should be taxed and stop giving them these tax breaks. That would be moving forward. Moving forward would be making sure that people in Flint have clean drinking water. How long has that been going on? Now we have Jackson, Mississippi. Who's next? Moving forward would be doing something for the American people, not the corporations. That's moving forward. And as long as we are in this two-party system, which is controlled by corporation, controlled by corporate money, corporate interests, we will not be moving forward. We will take little baby steps here and there, but we'll never get to what we truly deserve because of the system that the way that the system is. We won't get what we truly deserve. You have to get the money out. The money corrupts all of it. That's the problem. That's the problem. That's how you move forward.
And we're on that path moving ahead. I know this nation. I know you, the American people. I know your courage. I know your hearts. And I know our history.
Do you guys know Joe? I've never met Joe. Has Joe met you? Does Joe really know you? For those of you who are struggling, and I bring this up a lot because I feel it doesn't get talked about enough. For those of you who are struggling financially, does Joe Biden know what it's like to walk in your shoes? Does Joe Biden know what it's like to work 2 jobs? Does Joe Biden know what it's like to get to the grocery store and realize that you have to put food back because you don't have enough money by the time you get to the register and you realize you overspent? Does he know what that's like? I don't think Joe knows you. This is why I've always wanted us to have somebody who is truly from the working class or someone who is from a poor community. These are the people that we really need to have in these political positions, not people who, and to be fair, Joe Biden did go to State University, but most of the politicians who were there, they went to these Ivy League schools. They're of a certain class. They were lawyers. They come from money, or they knew somebody who had some money, and they don't represent us. And the ones that we put there recently that we thought would represent us sold out. This is why we need something new. This is why we need a third party movement. This is why we need a more direct action movement. We need an on the ground massive movement similar to what they had during the civil rights movement, because none of these people, including Joe Biden, are ever going to give us what we really deserve.
This is a nation that honors our Constitution. We do not reject it. This is a nation that believes in the rule of law. We do not repudiate it. This is a nation that respects free and fair elections. We honor the will of the people. We do not deny it. And this is a nation that rejects violence as a political tool. We do not encourage violence. We are still an America that believes in honesty and decency.
What? This is an America that believes in honesty and decency. Doesn't almost every politician lie? What is he talking about? What? What? Every election, they tell you what they're going to do for you and they vote against it. Almost every time. Where's the honesty? Where's the decency? Half of these politicians are crooks. They're just better at hiding it. They have better networks. They have people who can cover up their tracks. He's got to be joking.
And respect for others. Patriotism, liberty, justice for all, hope, possibilities. We are still, at our core, a democracy. And yet, history tells us that blind loyalty to a single leader and a willingness to engage in political violence is fatal to democracy. For a long time, we've told ourselves that American democracy is guaranteed, but it's not. We have to defend it, protect it, stand up for it.
How are you going to defend and protect something that you don't even have? And by the way, the United States government has been guilty of corrupting and destroying other countries that had true democracy.
Each and every one of us. That's why tonight I'm asking our nation to come together, unite behind the single purpose of defending our democracy regardless of your ideology.
Wait a minute. Take it back.
Democracy. For a long time, we've told ourselves that American democracy is guaranteed, but it's not. We have to defend it, protect it, stand up for it, each and every one of us. That's why tonight I'm asking our nation to come together, unite behind the single purpose of defending our democracy regardless of your ideology.
So you heard what he just said. He's asking our nation to come together and defend our democracy regardless of your ideology. After you just spent the first 7.5 minutes bashing people who supported Donald Trump, now you're going to say you want all of us to come together? Which is it? Which is it? Because you can't alienate an entire group and criticize them and smear them, and then at the end say, we all need to come together regardless of your political ideology. You think they want to come together with you now? After what you just said about them? Unite except for MAGAs. I can't make this up, Lawrence. Anybody's not find the problem with this in the speech? Does anyone see the problem? Okay. Let's go back in.
We're all called by duty and conscience to confront extremists who put their own pursuit of power above all else. Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans. We must be stronger, more determined, and more committed to saving American democracy.
Oh, so now you want to include independents. Because when independents are running, you don't even want them on the ballot. You don't want to let them debate. But now you want to include independents because you know you need their vote. Okay.
And MAGA Republicans are to destroying American democracy. We, the people, will not let anyone or anything tear us apart. Today, there are dangers around us we cannot allow to prevail. We here, you've heard it, more and more talk about violence as an acceptable political tool in this country. It's not. It can never be an acceptable tool. So I want to say this plain and simple. There is no place for political violence in America, period. None, ever.
Since when?
We saw law enforcement brutally attacked on January 6th. We've seen election officials, poll workers, many of them volunteers of both parties, subject to intimidation and death threats.
He acts like that's the first time that has ever happened. Go back to 2000.
And can you believe it? FBI agents just doing their job as directed, facing threats.
I'm not going to sit here and simp for the FBI, but
to their own lives from their own fellow citizens. On top of that, there are public figures today, yesterday, and the day before predicting and all but calling for mass violence and rioting in the streets. This is inflammatory. It's dangerous. It's against the rule of law. And we, the people, must say, this is not who we are.
when he says we the people, who is he talking to? Because he already isolated the Trump supporters. So who is he actually speaking to when he has the speech? Who is he addressing? Think about it. He says he wants everyone to come together, but he's isolating a certain group. So when he says we the people, who is he actually speaking to? Ask yourself that question when you listen to this.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can't be pro-insurrectionist and pro-American. They're incompatible. We can't allow violence to be normalized in this country. It's wrong. We each have to reject political violence with all the moral clarity and conviction this nation can muster. Now, we can't let the integrity of our elections be undermined. For that is a path to chaos. Look, I know politics.
What are you talking about? They don't even count all the ballots. I've talked about this before. We do not have election integrity in this country.
Politics can be fierce and mean and nasty in America. I get it. I believe in the give and take of politics, in disagreement and debate and dissent. We're a big, complicated country. But democracy endures only if we, the people, respect the guardrails of the republic. Only if.
The guardrails of the republic? This really is kind of like a Star Wars speech. This does kind of remind me of Star Wars now. Wow. Wow. Wow.
We, the people, accept the results of free and fair elections. Only if we, the people, see politics not as total war, but mediation of our differences. Democracy cannot survive when one side believes there are only two outcomes to an election. Either they win or they were cheated. And that's where the MAGA Republicans are today.
But didn't Hillary Clinton kind of say the same thing? Is she a MAGA Republican? Just wondering.
They don't understand what every patriotic American knows. You can't love your country only when you win. It's fundamental. American.
When do we really win, though? We're not winning anything.
Democracy only works only if we choose to respect the rule of law and the institutions that were set up in this chamber behind me. Only if we respect our legitimate political differences.
So how are you going to say to respect political differences, but he's not respecting political differences in this speech? He's not. What is this? I don't understand. This is strange to me.
I will not stand by and watch. I will not, the will of the American people, be overturned by wild conspiracy theories and baseless evidence-free claims of fraud. I will not stand by and watch elections in this country stolen by people who simply refuse to accept that they lost.
George W. Bush would like a word. That's all I'm going to say with that.
I will not stand by and watch the most fundamental freedom in this country, the freedom to vote, and have your vote counted and be taken from you and the American people. Look, As your president, I will defend our democracy with every fiber of my being, and I'm asking every American to join me.
Every American? Does that include the ones that you were just complaining about? Does that include them too?
Throughout our history, America has often made the greatest progress coming out of some of our darkest moments, like you're hearing that bullhorn. I believe we can and must do that again, and we are. MAGA Republicans look at America and see carnage and darkness and despair. They spread fear and lies. Lies told for profit and power.
So do you. So does the Democratic Party. Both parties do that. Let's not pretend it's just one side that spreads fear and lies. Come on.
But I see a different America. An America with an unlimited future. An America that's about to take off. I hope you see it as well. Just look around. I believe we could lift America from the depths of COVID. So we passed the largest economic recovery package since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And today, America's economy is faster, stronger than any other advanced nation in the world. We have more to go. I believe we could build a better America. So we passed the biggest infrastructure investment since President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And we've now embarked on a decade of rebuilding the nation's roads, bridges, highways, ports, water systems, high-speed internet, railroads.
And he's not going to go on to tell you, which I told you on the show before, that that infrastructure bill that they had doesn't even meet half of what the American Society of Civil Engineers said you need to have just for the maintenance. He's not going to tell you that. That's important because 10, 15 years from now, we'll be right back here again, dealing with these same issues. That's important. Some people may hear this and they're like, oh, give them some credit. Oh, you're being pessimistic. No, I'm a realist. If you expect me to sugarcoat things for you about Joe Biden, Democratic Party, any of the politicians, just so that you feel better about yourself, so that you feel better about where you think the country is headed, this is not the show for you. I'm not going to do that. There's CNN, there's MSNBC. You can check them out. But I'm just going to be honest with you, for real. We have to be real here. Because again, 10, 15 years from now, we're going to be right back here with the same issues and the same problems. Jackson, Mississippi is a perfect example. These things like our infrastructure, for example, you cannot let it be neglected for so long. And then now you want to come in and just do the bare minimum because that's all the Senate approved. Just do the bare minimum and think we're going to move moons. That is not how this works. We need a complete overhaul of our infrastructure system. It is falling apart. And I think we're starting to see more effects of that in this country.
I believe we could make America safer. So we passed the most significant gun safety law since President Clinton. I believe we could go from being the highest cost of prescriptions in the world to making prescription drugs and healthcare more affordable. So we passed the most significant healthcare reform since President Obama signed the Affordable Care Act.
And that's still not enough, because what you can do is give everybody healthcare in this country. What you can do is Medicare for all. You can do that, but you don't want to do it because that would hurt the pharmaceutical companies, which you get money from. So if you really cared that much about the American people, you would pass that type of legislation so that everyone can have healthcare in this country. It's actually a damn shame, and it's quite embarrassing. I can go to our neighbor, our northern neighbor, Canada. They have it. Now, it may vary by province, but they have it. You can go to countries in Europe. You can go to Germany. They have it. You can go to the UK. They have it. And we're supposed to be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And we can't even give everyone health care in this country because it's more important for them to make sure that the politicians are profited and that the pharmaceutical companies are making all the money and ripping off the American people and destroying the American people in making sure that they keep people sick instead of actually curing them, because there's more money in treatment than there is in a cure. Let's be real here. How many decades have we seen them do cancer research? They can't find a cure for cancer now? Still? Is it that they can't find cures, or is it because treatment is more profitable? I question this all the time. I'm sorry, but I know people who've had to go through it. They've shown me their bills. Chemotherapy is very expensive, even when you have health insurance. So this is a joke. So when people ask me, oh, why are you being so hard against Joe Biden? Give him some credit. I'll give people credit when you do something for the American people that actually gets people out of the rut that they're in. And there is more that can be done. I could understand if we did not have the money, but we have the money. It is being spent in the wrong places. And you should never just settle. And I say that to all of you. We have to get out of this mindset where we believe that what they're giving us, because it's something, it's enough. It's not. I'm sorry, creative experiments. Stop being so mean to Bernie's good friend. No, it's a reality. But that speech goes on. I don't want to go too far into it because I do want to get to the other two stories as well. But Terrence Cudney made a good point here. Now, Terrence is running as an independent here in Massachusetts. He's a friend of the show. And he tweeted this in reference to Joe Biden's speech. So Terrence said, I'm sorry, POTUS, but until we allow more than two parties to have equal access to the ballot and debate stage, and stop allowing party officials to make decisions about who they favor in a primary and exercise that favor, we don't have a democracy. That's right. Terrence is right. I'm going to go to some of the comments here and the Rockfin comments, and we'll get to the next story. So let's do what we got to do. Bad Cookie says, to anyone who is going to Camp Dada this weekend, I'm jealous. Have fun. I wish I could afford to go. It should be a blast. Thanks, Bad Cookies. I'm excited. Thanks for the super chat, Female Rage. The fact they choose that background unironically. Oh, yeah. The fact they chose that background unironically. That was a weird choice, huh? Red and black. I don't know. I don't like that message they were trying to send there. Thank you for the super sticker, JM. A kid says, Sabby, please consider Joe Biden's speech is only meant to divide and conquer the minds of folks. Instead of strategically speaking with forward-seeking policies, he seeks to regress America. I could see that, a kid. Bob says, Sabby, it's simple. He doesn't care. You shouldn't be surprised. Thank you for the super chat, Female Rage. I think they can feel the room and fear the citizens turning on them in droves. People are angry as hell and want real change. Divide and conquer. Yeah, I also think that's why they're ramping up the police state too, because I think they know what's coming. Thank you for the super chat with our eyes rise. Black Force reparations / Black Force the vote and fight the power company. Thank you for that. Casey says 2022, October 8th, Washington, D.C., hashtag free Assange now. Yes. If you guys don't already follow her, please follow Misty on Twitter. She's a part of the MCSC network. Misty is one of the people. I think Misty may have organized that whole event herself, but she is in charge of that event. So definitely check that out. Use that hashtag and you'll be able to find a lot of her tweets as well. Bill Bradley says, if other poor people are your boogeyman, you have been propagandized. That's right. Thank you for the super chat, Macharius 39. Civil rights were birthed from political violence. Maybe that's what they're afraid. I told you, I think that's what they're afraid of. Really. Greg Bruce says attacking opposing voter bases is going to work out as well for Biden as it did for Hillary Clinton and Mitt Romney. Yeah, man. They keep doing it though. Thank you for the super sticker, JM. And thank you for the super chat, Larez121. If this was on SNL, I'd laugh. This is horrifying. Yeah. I can see. I wonder if they'll make fun of that. I don't know. I haven't seen SNL in a long time, though. But who knows? They might pick on it. I'll take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. Okay. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin. Snork Y2K. Please wait for an opinion on Biden's speech until Ro Khanna tells how wonderful it was. Thank you for that. Thank you for this tip on Rockfin, Roger Meadows. The rich knew you were coming, so they had to stop you. Also, our democracy left with Buckley v. Valeo and Bellotti versus First National Bank of Boston. Money is speech, corporations are people. If we had a true democracy, then the voters would be able to pass and repeal laws at every level of government and amend state and U.S. Constitution directly through national ballot initiatives and state local ballot initiatives. That's another good example there, Roger. And thank you for this tip, Dave. Get rid of Citizens United. Yes, Buckley versus Valeo and the First National Bank of Boston decision where money is equated with speech. Disgusting. Our courts have fucked us. Time for principled revolt. Thank you so much for that. All right, guys, go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't done so. That helps me out with the algorithm. And we're going on to our next story. So, I think I got a super chat here. Thanks for the super chat, M. Johnston. Does any Republican support Medicare for all? Actually, I have talked to many conservatives about this issue, and I won't necessarily say the Medicare for all bill per se, but most of them that I have spoken to said that they agree that everyone should have health care in this country. But that's why it's important to talk to people. Let's get into the story here with Russell Brand and Max Blumenthal. Interesting discussion here. They talked about a couple of issues, but there's one section that they really kind of target, and that's basically leftism, right? Like what's happening with the left? What is the direction? Where are people going? And where do we go from here? So I thought it was pretty cool to see Max on Russell Brand's show. Russell, you guys know I talk about Russell Brand on here a lot. I think he has a really cool platform, and I like a lot of the things that he has to say. So let's go ahead and get into this discussion. This is pretty good.
Joe Biden has called people that disagree with him semi-fascists. Does this mean that the left are through with even pretending to care? Hello there, you 5.8 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage towards truth, a truth that is already within you in the form of limitless light, connected to all reality there's ever been and ever could possibly be. Turn on that notification bell right now in case the algorithm is against us, and please subscribe. We're desperate to nudge this thing right up into 6 million for reasons that don't really make sense to me and probably amount to simple vanity. Hey, did you hear that Joe Biden called the MAGA movement semi-fascist the other day? Now, whether or not you're a Trump supporter, and I'd have to say that I'm not a Trump supporter. You lot, I know, really love him. Me, that's not my bag. But I certainly don't think you should be calling civilians of your own country of which you are president semi-fascist unless they literally are genocidal, racist maniacs. And I personally believe that when you start to talk about people that you disagree with in contemptuous terms, that is the kind of end of civility, the end of reasonable hope for a better political future. I spoke to Max Blumenthal from the Grey Zone. We talked about the left and its demise and how the left used to be about representing ordinary people against powerful establishment elites. What has happened to the left? Whether you consider yourself to be right-wing, left-wing, or beyond all political systems of identification, let me know in the comments below what you think. You'll be very interested in this conversation about the shifting sands of politics and how we need to create a new political movement that is supportive of all Americans.
20 years ago, is like, I feel like you would have been working at the New York Times as a sort of a radical lefty journalist, and I would have been Jane Fonda. You know what I mean? It was like these were sort of like figures that the mainstream could sort of accommodate as slightly alternative critics of the establishment. But now, like, it's like these like we're conspiracy theorists, persona non grata, forbidden, cannot speak out. No one's willing to talk about the complexity of you being critical of Israel and and what that sort of suggests in terms of where that would place you politically, and that you've written about George Bush. It's just that they have to find labels that legitimize this person cannot speak. We'll just have to. What would mean you can't listen to this person? Well, you have to find some taboo subject to associate that person with. Bang! Now that person can't speak anymore.
Yeah, there's always some label, Russian disinformation or anti-vax. That's like something you hear. You're an anti-vaxxer if you dare criticize Fauci or the lockdowns. And I remember getting into journalism I know a lot more now. I'd probably say I'm more red-pilled. Maybe I'm just more disillusioned and angry 20 years later. But at the time I had this idea that, maybe I can write for Rolling Stone someday, like Rolling Stone. Cause I remember, Rolling Stone was a countercultural publication. It was publishing dispatches from the field in Vietnam, exposing, Nixon and Reagan and Iran-Contra. And you had, all sorts of magazines that were in wide circulation.
It's really interesting. He mentioned Rolling Stone. I used to read Rolling Stone back in the day. I didn't start reading it because of political news per se. I started reading Rolling Stone because I like music. And a lot of times there was a musician on the cover. And that's actually what got me to reading Rolling Stone. And then I would read the other, political news as well. And it was kind of eye-opening back then. I mean, this was years ago, you guys, just keep this in mind. So for me at that time, as someone who was, liberal, I think that Rolling Stone did it started to wake me up slowly, I would say, to some of the issues that were going on. It didn't wake me up as much as Bernie Sanders campaigns did, but it started to get me there. But I will say, when I look at Rolling Stone recently, I feel like some of that has been lost. I feel like it's become more, I don't know. I feel like it's become a little bit more mainstream now, to be honest.
Doing many of the same things we're doing at the Gray Zone. Now you look at Rolling Stone, all it does is attack people who threaten the establishment, smear even minor figures, and then publish disinformation about entire hospital wings full of people who overdosed on ivermectin, like fake stories. And what the formerly countercultural legacy publications do. I mean, Mother Jones is another one, or Democracy Now!, where Aaron Mate used to work. Is they're doing the work of the establishment, but in a more insidious way than The Economist could do, because they're associated with the left and the counterculture. It's
that comment was funny. That's probably true. Roman Smith, Sabby wasn't even alive when Rolling Stones was really good. Yeah, probably true. But Max just mentioned Democracy Now! That's another one, you guys, that's kind of fallen off of the cliff too. I used to really like Democracy Now! As time went by, there were another one I felt like after Joe Biden won, they started to push more of an imperialist, more of a, pro-war kind of rhetoric. And I didn't think I would hear that from them, but I don't know. I don't know if they've been bought off. I don't know if there's money attached to this as the reason why they're starting to change their talking points. But I have noticed they've kind of been a disappointment for me lately.
So disgusting.
Yeah. I like what Glenn Greenwald, he's after you'd think that you're a Pulitzer Prize winning, that's it, hero for life, the Snowden stuff. But now, married to a man. I mean, what do you this is not what a conventional right wing conspiracy theorist looks like. But that's sort of what you I'm sort of astonished that it's happened, and I suppose it comes down to sort of, as you say, ideas around class, metropolitan sort of kind of comfort, when you give the example of the Rolling Stone, it's just I guess the Rolling Stone, if we were to look into how that's owned, how that's funded, it would become pretty plain that they're not going to start publishing stuff that threatens those interests. And I suppose that's where corporatism and monopolization ultimately create a homogeneity of opinion, because you cannot, now that there is the availability of information, i.e. through the media that you and I are talking through, the potential frankly exists to create global unrest, to create global solidarity to create movements where working people of all colours and forms of identification could come together against our common enemy, not in some sort of statist communist model, but a decentralized, sort of a more syndicalist version of democracy. Well, democracy is the word. You run your own communities, you run your own schools. That's sort of plausible now. It's technologically plausible. It's ideologically plausible. It's only implausible because of the level of resistance and the forces that, oppose it.
And another thing I want to add here, what he was talking about in reference to those outlets per se. The other thing I can tell you that I did notice, this is when I was applying for internships, so this is a long time ago, just keep that in mind. Some of these outlets like Rolling Stone, New York Times, Washington Post, they changed their model from hiring people and even interns, hiring interns and hiring people that actually really want to, really want to get out there and do like beat journalism, like hit the pavement and really talk to the people, right? They kind of switched from that to only hiring people that went to these private elite schools, like the people that went to like NYU or Harvard or Yale or Princeton, and they switched that model. And so for the average student that was graduating from a public university, it's really, really difficult for them to get a job at those types of publications today. So journalism has changed in the sense that it used to be more of I never saw it as like, you're going to make a lot of money doing this. I never saw it that way. Never saw it that way, but it's changed. Now it's like, it's all about status. It's all about class. And it didn't used to be that way. So it's unfortunate that that's the route that they've started to take. I think sometimes that can hinder some of the creativity, because just because someone went to a state school doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad writer, right? And just because you went to an elite private school doesn't mean that you're a great writer, right? Just because you don't even have to go to college to be a great writer. So I think it's changed. It's changed. So there is a sense of classism that has kind of infiltrated journalism today. This is just something I've noticed that has changed.
Yeah, it's also about sovereignty, that many people want to be able to make decisions on a national basis.
Right.
And so you have right wingers who make that argument. They don't want Bill Gates and the World Health Organization or, the World Economic Forum, which is the global thought leader for transnational capitalism, coming in and deciding what policy should be grafted on by their local lawmakers. But then you also have socialist-oriented countries like Venezuela or Nicaragua trying to take their own path in the face of imperial demands. And, I actually just, in these countries have interesting models that can be learned from. I just interviewed the Nicaraguan version of Anthony Fauci. I interviewed her actually in February, but we just published it at the Gray Zone. She's the top advisor to Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega of the socialist-oriented Sandinista Front. And she and her other public health experts in Nicaragua refused to lock down. They actually didn't seek to exert that same level of control over the population through lockdown, because so much of their constituency in the Sandinista Front are just informal workers who work in the street or who are campesino poor farmers. And if they're locked down, they starve to death. So they at least took into account the needs of their population, and they were brutally attacked through the World Health Organization and by corporate Latin American media. So there's very blurry lines here on what actually constitutes left or right, but so many people across the world are just fighting for the right to make decisions that are right for their own society, whether they're in a socialist society or not. And what I feel in the US, and especially within the US left, is that as these lines increasingly blur and you see people who are considered like right-wing kooks, like this representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, denounce the FBI or denounce sending $40 billion to Ukraine. And then you see self-identified socialist lawmakers like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the members of this like de facto progressive boy band known as the Squad.
I'm sorry, that's kind of funny. He called it a boy band.
When they are voting for the 40 billion to Ukraine.
Wow.
And they are voting to expand the Capitol Police and the security state's budget, voting for the department to fund the Department of Homeland Security, and violating all their campaign promises, doing stuff that, you know, I just never thought socialists would do.
It's like the roles have switched, because you would want the Democratic Socialists to be the ones, or you expect them to be the ones to say, you know, abolish the FBI. You'd expect them to be the ones to vote against sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. That's what you would expect to happen, but that's not what's happening, right? I mean, let's be real. What are we seeing? Like, people who have decided that they want to be career politicians now. They're not going to fight for. They're in too deep now, so they're not going to start fighting for us now, fighting against the Democratic Party establishment. They know they have to be on good terms with Nancy Pelosi if they want to go further in their career, right? And look at how this is turning out. Ilhan Omar squeaked by her primary, her election. That was close. So it's interesting how this is happening.
The left increasingly is falling into a kind of identity crisis. And you see more and more fractures within the left, more and more attacks within the left, or attacks on people like Glenn Greenwald, who don't fit within a typical left-right divide. I mean, he's basically just a civil libertarian who found a platform on Fox, because you can't say those kinds of things on CNN or MSNBC. So the left is at a weaker point, I think, than ever before. And the impulse to gatekeep becomes stronger when your identity falls into crisis, because you have to tell people who you are. You have to push other people to signal their virtue.
And you can start to...
I just want to chime in here for just a second. I'll go back because I think I cut off a little bit. There's something he said there in reference to identity on the left. And I wonder, and I want to hear you guys' opinion about this. Do you think that maybe the reason the left has an identity crisis right now is because the Democratic Party has co-opted the term progressive? Because now there are politicians in DC that are calling themselves progressive that were not progressive. Shontel Brown, you know, I would say 2 years ago, this was considered like a dirty word by those establishment Democrats. Now you have people like Shontel Brown. You have people like Ted Lieu from California calling themselves progressive as well. So now it's just like, it doesn't hold as much weight as it did before. It has become more establishment, in my point. Like, I feel like the word progressive, it doesn't really mean anything anymore. Do you think that's why the left has an identity issue? Or do you think the left has an identity crisis now because this is no longer attached to the Bernie Sanders campaigns, and Bernie Sanders left his movement? So now people are kind of scrambling like, well, what do we do now? Let me know. I'd like to hear from you in the chat. Let's go back in. Oh, I think I have to. Whoop-dee. Okay, there we go.
And so the left is at a weaker point, I think, than ever before. And the impulse to gatekeep becomes stronger when your identity falls into crisis, because you have to tell people who you are. You have to push other people to signal their virtue.
And you can start to see the relationship between this kind of political sort of nihilism or banality or sort of new bureaucracy, and the emergence of the sort of culture war becoming the kind of living epitaph of that former leftist movement, that all that remains is this kind of moral stance of protecting the individual rights of sort of essentially wealthy individuals with a variety of formats of identity. It becomes another mode of division.
Well, I mean, the left has gone through painful series of decades. I mean, Mikhail Gorbachev died yesterday, 92. He's the guy who basically ended the Soviet Union. And with the end of the Soviet Union, you saw the rise of a unipolar United States, and then all these policies of unchecked, unfettered transnational capitalism like NAFTA, which devastated the working class in the United States. Deunionization picked up massively because, the New Deal impulse was gone to kind of create a social democratic alternative to the USSR in the United States. And with the death or just, the controlled demolition of unions and offshoring of jobs, the left changed. The class character of the US left changed, and working people, who worked blue collar jobs, who did stuff with their hands, well, many of them just died due to the opioid genocide fueled by the Sackler family.
So I would say, in reference to this point here, from what I remember, and if you're older than me, please correct me on this, I started to notice this shift with Barack Obama. Obama definitely he's from the Wall Street group, the Goldman Sachs group. And that was when I noticed a shift. Now, don't get me wrong, Bill Clinton was still corporate as well. But I did notice something different about Bill Clinton. He was actually going into people's homes, and he was actually, that doesn't sound good. He was actually at that time, he was going to working class and poor neighborhoods in the Rust Belt, mind you, when he was campaigning at that time. Remember that. I remember seeing this on the news with my dad, and he was actually talking to people in their home. So the kitchen table politics, right? He was talking to people at the coffee shop. He would just go in and say, vote for me, and here's who I am. He would actually sit down and have conversations with them. So that's one thing. Now there's a lot to be said about Bill Clinton, but I noticed a difference when Obama ran. It just seemed to me, it was like, it was more academic. It came across like more elite. And don't get me wrong, obviously there was going to be more pressure put on Obama. So maybe he kind of felt like, I got to walk like a straight, narrow line. But I felt like that was the emergence of the Goldman Sachs Democrat politician. And then we saw it again with Hillary Clinton, right? So I don't know, but if you're in the chat and you're older than me and you remember this happening before, then let me know. I know my parents said they felt like Carter was the last one to actually really reach out to the working class, but I don't remember that. But yeah, let me know.
Others just became really angry and went to the right and voted for Trump because they wanted to give the middle finger to the man. And the left was left with its base kind of in universities and grad school. And, their front line became people who are overeducated and underemployed with student debt, voting for Bernie. Bernie rolled over and went back into the Senate. I don't know where the left can go, but you have basically a left that has the character of a professional managerial class, a very professionalized activist left, not really that distinct from the class character that defines the base of the Democratic Party. I know this because I come from this. Okay. This is me. This is also a self-analysis.
I'm glad that Max acknowledges that, because not everybody's willing to do that. I'm glad he acknowledges, like, look, I come from this class. I know what I'm talking about. I will say, in reference to, oh shoot. Now I got to go back. I'm sorry. He just said something that I was going to touch on. Hold on.
Trump, because they wanted to give the middle finger to the man. And the left was left with its base kind of in universities and grad school. And, their front line became people who are overeducated and underemployed with student debt, voting for Bernie. Bernie rolled over and went back into the Senate. I don't know where the left can go, but you have basically a left that has the character of a professional managerial class, a very professionalized
that part right there, the PMCs. This is something that, so CJ, my comrade on RBN, CJ is really good at talking about the PMCs. He's done multiple shows about this on RBN, and he really tackles this issue. And this is not to say that everyone that is professional managerial class is this way. Not everyone is, but sometimes there can be this tendency to sometimes leave out the people who are not PMCs, in the sense that you're talking about issues that you think affect everyone. You're talking about issues that you think that because you may have these issues, that people who are working class and poor may have to deal with those issues too, but that's not necessarily the case. But if you don't interact with people who are a part of those groups, then you don't really know or really understand what their issues may be. And I don't know if it's necessarily something that's done on purpose, but I think it can be a subconscious thing. You can have that subconscious bias where it's not necessarily that you're choosing not to interact with those people, but it's that I want to give you guys an example. Daryl's. I'll tell you about Daryl's. There's a restaurant right next to Northeastern University here. It's called Daryl's. Really good, right? So they're kind of known for like soul food, Black-owned restaurant. They have jazz night. A lot of people go there just for jazz night, right? I remember one time I was talking to a coworker about, getting something to eat after work. And I was talking about going to Daryl's to grab something to eat. They had never heard of it. I told them, oh yeah, I said it's told them type of restaurant. I told them like where it was. It wasn't even the fact that it was a soul food restaurant. Here was the part that really made them think maybe I'm not going to go. Where is it? I said, oh, well, yeah, it's in Roxbury. I don't know if I necessarily feel safe like going over there. I'm like, it's bright daylight. Like, what do you think is going to happen to you? You think someone's going to come into Daryl's and just like take everybody out? Like, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen here in broad daylight? And they're like, oh yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's really like my thing. Or so it's something like that sometimes. Like, that's just an example where sometimes people, they can make those comments where it's like, they're not telling you, look, I don't want to go hang out in a poor neighborhood. But they are telling you they don't want to go hang out in a poor neighborhood. They're just not saying it in an overt way. They're not saying to you, yeah, I don't want to go mingle with that class of people there. But they are saying it. They're just saying it in a covert way. So I think that's something I have noticed sometimes when you look at that group, like the PMCs. But like I said, I don't think everyone necessarily does it on purpose, but I think there is bias there.
Activist left, not really that distinct from the class character that defines the base of the Democratic Party. I know this because I come from this. Okay. This is me. Like, this is also a self-analysis. And so what do you hang on to define yourself as distinct from a more and more populist right? You can also say a pseudo-populist right that's taking up the mantle of issues that used to be considered left, like anti-war. Like, you have right-wingers. The only people in Congress who are voting against funding this insane proxy war in Ukraine are right-wingers. The only ones, literally. Yeah. They're the only ones opposing the FBI.
No one made in our country. No one made a left-wing case for Brexit. No one made a case for what is the left-wing argument. It was an argument that Corbyn was clearly wanted to make, that was unable to make, because it was, again, the space had become inoculated from that kind of complexity.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say is, like, that's true. Like, typically when I would think about like the progressives or like the social democrats, the image that I got were people who were like anti-war, like that type of, but it doesn't seem like they're anti-war today. In fact, and I'm noticing more and more anti-war voices are being silenced. So it's like, I don't know, like, I again, like, what is happening to the left now? Again, that's why I think those progressives going into the Democratic Party, looking back on it, I don't think it was a good idea, because you went into a party that's corporate. And if you want to keep your career, you're going to have to change your messaging to fit the party. You're going to have to adopt their messaging. And if you don't, they'll push you out, just like they've done others like Dennis Kucinich or Cynthia McKinney. Talk to them about these kinds of things. They'll tell you how it works. So I think that it's changed now. I feel like it's becoming more watered down. And those of us who still kind of believe those things, like, no, like we're not for those. We're not for war. We're not for imperialism. Those of us who still continue to fight for that. Now, those people who were once with us, they're looking at us and they're calling us nihilists. Isn't that interesting how that works?
And be permitted, and like the aspect of the left that you have just described was formerly a component of the left, a necessary component, a professional intelligentsia, bourgeoisie, that in affiliation with the proletariat is gonna create a socialist movement. But as you say, with the extraction of the proletariat and the annihilation of the with the abandonment of the working class, what you're left with is a kind of a perverted aspect of the left. And all like, I spoke to someone the other day and they said that, he said, I'm as disenchanted with anti-wokeness as I am wokeness. It's not like, that we want to be anti-woke. All of those issues around identity, like, as a person who would have once been traditionally left, these are like really, really important duties of anybody to ensure that people are represented and these conversations are had and people don't feel marginalized or ashamed of who they are, and that the complexity of what it is to be a human is something that continues to evolve and be respected. But the idea that that's all that remains, and it's extracted from economics, and that it's extracted from meaningful social change, and there is no means for alliance against the powerful interest that we've just spent the last hour talking about, means that you've got a left devoid of dynamism and left only with emblematic gestural politics, virtue signaling as they call it.
There's a lot of virtue signaling in the Democratic Party. A lot of virtue signaling. Let me put on this kente cloth and kneel. Make it seem like I'm doing something for Black people, that I actually care about their struggles and their cause. But at the same time, let me still give more money to the police so they can come into that same community and harass Black people for no reason. Let me do that. You really want to help? Fix the schools. Fix the schools in poor neighborhoods. You really want to help. Don't just name the school after a civil rights leader. That's not fixing the school. Fix the school. Increase the resources the same way that you do the schools in the suburbs. That's one way you can help. A lot of it starts with education. You really want to help? The public housing communities are a mess. Maybe some of these cities should actually investigate what's going on in some of these public housing communities and what is happening with the residents, how the buildings are falling apart, and not just sit back and wait to collect money from it when the building falls apart, because you'll let an investor come in and replace it with a luxury condo building. If you really want to help. So all those Democrat politicians in DC, Miss Nancy Pelosi, who was kneeling in kente cloth, Jim Clyburn, all of them. You really want to help Black communities. When you go back to your districts, especially Jim Clyburn, which has the poorest district in South Carolina, last time I checked, why don't you tackle the housing situation that's going on in your community? Hold some of these landlords or slumlords accountable. Stop investors from coming into these communities and buying up the housing and allowing gentrification to come in and change your community if you really want to help. But they don't really want to help. That's the thing.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard it put so well in a spontaneous fashion. That's exactly what I was kind of building up to, which is that.
Well, I thought I'd do a bit, Max. I mean, you've done so much legwork. I thought I'd pop in for a little bit.
Thanks for stopping in. I really have nothing to add.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, have a look at either of these two. They're both fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if he is going to do another clip. Sometimes with Russell Brand, how long is this video? 14 minutes and 14:32. Sometimes he'll do a second clip, but this one is called This Is Shameful. And that's on Russell Brand's Under the Skin podcast on YouTube. So I think he did 2 clips with Kim Iverson. I'm not sure. But anyway, stay tuned for that. Let me go ahead and get those comments on Rockfin, Eric, and then I'll go to the ones in YouTube chat. Thank you so much for the temp, Dave. Also, have a blast at Camp Dada. Wish I could go. I'm excited. Yay! Thank you, Dave. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin. Roger, I don't think you got the joke of that first sentence of the first message I sent about Rich stopping you was your banking issues. Oh, you're talking about that? Yeah, those, yikes. However, MAGA Republicans, Joe says, but no mention of Ultra MAGA. I guess he killed them all. Yikes. That makes sense, Roger. That makes sense now. Okay, let me go to some of the comments here on YouTube. Bart says, Russell Brand is super skilled at introducing left-wing ideas to right-wingers in a non-threatening way. That's a good point, Bart. Thank you for the super chat, AJF. Even if money is free speech, we must accept that it's unequal because not everyone can spend their money equally politically, especially among the classes. That's a good point. Thank you for the super chat, Terry. Have fun tomorrow and disturb the rich. That's right. That's right. Thank you. Thanks for the super chat, Justin. Just joining, but wanted to wish all an awesome Friday. TGIF Sabby. Cheers. Thank you, Justin. And thank you for the super chat, AJF. I watched Democracy Now! Since 94. Trust me when I say it is effing playing it safe. They still report well and anti-war, but not as firmly since 2010. Interesting. Carl says, I want to see Russell Brand interview Noam Chomsky. He has. Yes, he has interviewed Noam Chomsky. I want to say that was a couple weeks ago. Check his channel. It's tricky sometimes because I think with him, like some of his thumbnails don't have the guest on the thumbnail. But if I remember, didn't I, Eric, let me know in the chat, didn't I cover that one? I thought I covered when he interviewed Noam Chomsky. I forget. Sean says, Sabby, it started with Clinton in the US and mirrored in UK by Blair. Neoliberal shills to their very soul. Obama was just a continuation of the order. I'm 61 and suffering. Okay. Sorry to hear that, Sean, but thank you for that information. Angela says, I remember Carter. I was a kid. He got caught up in horrible foreign policy with long-reaching consequences. That being said, he did try in earnest, I believe, to reach out to the working class. Good to know, Angela. I don't know as much about Jimmy Carter as I should probably. Bill says people want to ascribe it to a later time, but it was set in motion by the DNC of the 70s that pushed all the sort of leftist people out. Wow. Thank you for the super sticker, JM. Terry says Daryl used to have good food. The original owner was a black. Wait, what? Hold on. You said Daryl's used to have good food. The original owner was a black man. So they sold it? I didn't know that. I did not know that. Oh, man. Bad Cookie said, let's get a like check. Let's drop a like for Sabby. It isn't easy. Easy work talking sense to us numbskulls. Hit that like button, guys. And thank you for this super chat, Sean. The only just war, class war versus billionaires, solidarity from Scotland. Thank you. And welcome from Scotland. I wonder how people find me. Like, for those of you that are abroad, I wonder how you find me. Oh, you found it, Eric? You did. Yes, he did. Okay. Russell Brand did interview Noam Chomsky. What is the name of this video? Noam Chomsky warning to Russell Brand. Okay, so I did cover this. I thought so. Is there a date? Oh, July 27th, 2022. So if I covered this July 27th, that means this interview probably happened a couple days before that. So if you check on his channel, you'll see it. Okay, let's go ahead and get to the next story. This is actually the story that's going to lead us into our call-in segment tonight. Now, Oh, what is that? Oh, I'm starting here. Okay. I am starting here. I forgot about that. So last night we were talking about the water crisis in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi specifically. And, you know, there were a lot of excuses. But one of the things that stood out was the fact that it's an expensive job for them to fix the water plants. They didn't have the money. All these excuses. Of course, you know, economics is going to play into this. As always, we don't have the money, right? But is that necessarily true? Now, this morning, something else came out about Mississippi that does not look good in reference to funds. First, I'm going to play you the clip or part of the clip from the mayor in Jackson, Mississippi. So he's speaking out about the water crisis issue. And then I'm going to show you what was just announced this morning about where the money has been going in Mississippi. And they have another scandal and crisis on their hands. And this time it involves Brett Favre, former NFL quarterback. And we're going to connect the two because I really believe after you see what I show you tonight, there really was no excuse for this water situation. So let's go ahead and get started with the mayor and hear what he has to say about the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi.
Having me again and happy to be able to lift up this circumstance on your show. This has been something we've been crying out for more than 2 years, saying that it's not a matter of if our systems will fail, but a matter of when our systems will fail. I have described Jackson as the poster child of the infrastructure challenges that we see in this country. And so this is something that when the state joined me and shared that they would be bringing in resources, bringing in a team to support us, we welcome that with open arms because we've been saying that we needed the support. We've been saying that we need resources. And so this is a matter of human rights. This is a matter of deferred maintenance that has happened over decades, a lack of investment in capital improvements, and quite possibly, quite honestly, probably more than $1 billion worth of challenges that have to go into our water distribution system. And so we were sustaining some level of improvement yesterday, but the system, true to its form and true to what we have seen, had a bit of regression last night. And so we're struggling to get tanks back up, struggling to be able to restore water pressure across the city. And so we believe that our residents are worthy of a system which is sustainable, are worthy of a system which is equitable, serving all of the residents and not having a disproportionate effect on the poorest communities in South Jackson.
And Mayor, I wanted to ask you about the responsibility of the state government in this issue.
Okay, wait for it. Now he's going to ask him about the state government responsibility.
The state legislature. Mississippi has long been the nation's poorest state. It's also the state with the highest percentage of African American residents. Could you talk about how the state has responded in the past to your request, and also the issue of the state constitution not allowing municipalities to tax themselves, have independent taxing authority, and how that affects your ability to remedy the water infrastructure problems?
Yes. It is clear that we're heavily reliant on the state for many of these resources, not only because we don't have the independent ability to tax ourselves, but because even the federal funding that is sent to or intended for cities like Jackson, the conduit that it comes through is actually the state of Mississippi.
Hold that thought. Now, you can watch the rest of that interview, ironically enough, on Democracy Now! We were just talking about them. But hold that thought to what he just said. The state is supposed to help. Now, when we talked about this last night, again, I told you, what did they say on the news? They said, it's too expensive. The funding is a problem. There's a new scandal in Mississippi. $86 million scandal. Money that came through the state. What happened to it? Where did it go? Let's get into it.
The state rejects 90% of those who apply, including Edwards.
When I reapplied, is whether you want to pay your light bill or, you have to make a choice whether you want to pay your light bill or whether you want to put food on the table.
Tamara Edwards raised 4 children on her own in Mississippi, applying for welfare benefits just once for childcare while she worked. Each year, Mississippi gets $86 million in welfare money from the federal government, though the state rejects 90% of those who apply, including
$86 million. The state gets $86 million from the federal government for welfare. $86 million. Hold that thought. Because we need to see what happened to that money.
including Edwards.
When I reapplied, I was not able to be on it again because they told me that they didn't have the fundings for it.
But the state was dispersing millions more of its welfare dollars, just not to families that urgently needed it. In court documents and audit reports, the state alleges that the head of Mississippi's welfare agency squandered more than $70 million intended for children in poverty.
Did you hear that? $70 million was squandered that was intended for children living in poverty. $70 million. No freaking way. No way. And then you have Jackson, Mississippi is going through a water crisis right now. They said they have no money. They didn't have enough money to fix the water plants, right? That's why they're in this situation. It's built up over time. But the state has squandered $70 million. Let's go in.
Instead, using it as a private slush fund to benefit his family and friends. Tens of millions of dollars on items like hiring retired pro wrestlers, first-class air travel, a horse ranch, and $5 million to build this women's volleyball facility at the University of Southern Mississippi. That building with ties to an NFL Hall of Famer. Brett Favre's daughter played volleyball at the university. Text messages obtained by Mississippi Today show Favre saying he helped secure government grant money for a new arena. And he personally was paid more than $1 million to give 3 motivational speeches that never happened.
Did you hear that? So, by the way, they've reached out to Brett Favre for comment. There's no comment. So that's that, just in case you're wondering. Why are welfare funds going into Brett Favre's pocket? Why were they using that money to pay him money to give speeches that never even happened? Isn't this illegal? Isn't this a crime? All that money gone. And you have people without water in that state. Unfucking believable. Unbelievable. Excuse my language. But that has to anger you.
Favre declined to talk to NBC News, but his attorney says he has been questioned by the FBI. Favre says he never knew it was welfare money and paid it back after demands by state officials. Favre still owes $228,000 in interest imposed by the state auditor.
I wanted to at least collect the facts.
Former U.S. Attorney Brad Pygott was hired by the state to find the money.
How is Brett Favre getting money that's supposed to get kids out of poverty?
It's a mystery to us. Here we had tens of millions of dollars sent by the country to do the thing that we need done the most, and it was squandered.
In July, he issued a subpoena to get more answers about that volleyball arena, including any communications between the university and former Governor Phil Bryant, whom Pygott says directed the spending. Bryant says he was unaware that welfare money was involved.
What happened to you after you filed your subpoena?
I was terminated.
The state welfare agency says they fired Pygott because the client and the lawyer were not on the same page. The investigation has only recently resumed. Welfare agency head John Davis was arrested and charged with bribery and conspiracy. He pled not guilty. The agency declined an interview, saying they are committed to rebuilding the trust of the citizens and making all future grant decisions by committee. So far, just $1.1 million has been recovered.
We're real people. There's real people out there that really need that money.
Ken Delanian, NBC News, Jackson, Mississippi.
I'm just thinking about all the people that really needed that money. State funds should have never been going to Brett Favre to begin with. That should never happen. And can somebody explain to me what's going on in Mississippi? Notice how the gentleman that they talked to, both gentlemen, is like, I don't know how this happened. Nobody knows, but it happened, right? Isn't that interesting how no one seems to know? $70 million. There's no money trail. We're going to talk about this tonight on Call In. We need to talk about what has happened in Jackson, Mississippi. And it's not just because, oh, we had this issue with funding and you just saw how much money the state is actually getting. And then you had someone in a position of power that was squandering the money away. So it wasn't going to the people that it really needed to go to. They could have taken some of that money and given it to people in Jackson, Mississippi. They could have taken some of that money and helped fix that water plant in Jackson, Mississippi. But no, they wanted to give money to Brett Favre. This guy was spending money to pay for retired wrestlers. This guy was spending money for airline tickets to build a new facility. They don't care about spending the money because, again, it's money that is supposed to go to a group of people that they don't care about. They don't care about poor people. They don't care about Black people. We talked about this last night. Jackson, Mississippi is 82.5% Black. They don't care. So for them, they're just like, who cares? They're poors. Who cares if they struggle? Who cares if they die? We're going to live the life off this money. That has to be a federal crime. That has to be a federal one. That much money? Lauren said money laundering. Terrible, huh? So I don't know. I think Brett Favre needs to issue more of a statement except for, oh, I paid some of it back. No, like, come on. We cannot continue to let this happen to these types of communities. And it's been happening. Look at what they did to people in Flint. Has there been any accountability still for what happened to the people in Flint? Wouldn't have happened to rich people, though. I'll tell you that much. Wouldn't have happened. All right, Eric, we're going to do quick break before Call In. I think you just have... Yeah, these are all... Yes, so all of these super chats all these chats are new, so you'll have to go through all of those from the top, I think. And I'll take a break. I'll be back, guys, and then we'll transition.
I guess I better stop eating.
Yeah, I want to hear you guys. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. This is ridiculous. So I'll be back.
All right, it's before the Sabby Colin break time. I'm going to fill in while Sabby gets a little break, and then she'll be back on, and then we'll be kicking it over to Colin. Hi, Eric. Hi, Lawrence. Thank you. Lawrence is a Sabby member, as Sabby likes to say. Let me put up a little banner that says Sabby Colin starting soon. There we go. And I believe the Colin link is Eric, please enjoy your meal. You're as good as Russell Brand. Not exactly, but thank you. I believe the link to the Colin room is pinned on the top of the chat, and we'll try and post it in the chat too. And you can either click on that link and listen and call in on your browser, or you can do the app on your cell phone. All right, we got a few chats built up. Let's see what we got. This from X Colin, thanks. You need to watch the Russell vid he put out today. Thanks. We'll check out that one. From AJF Milan, thanks for this. Very astute Sab, yes, Dems co-opt. Left has strong brackets of leftism, as in some or more left on some aspect than others. All right, thanks for that. And also from AJF, there's a reason we have a socialist, Democrat, Marxist, Leninist, etc., or there's a reason we have these terms. I think we should all just call ourselves leftists in general. People chats. Thanks for that, AJF. Let's see. Thanks for this from System Error. Watch RB today. Don't pay UK. Don't pay energy bill. Thanks for that. AJF coming in again with a very generous super chat. The one unifying thing I think we can all agree on the left to call ourselves is possibly collectivists, or our motto is we all chip in to make sure everyone will get their birthday cake. And bam, he says. Yeah, I also like the term collaborative. So maybe we can work that in there somewhere. But I'm really into the whole idea of collaboration. And I like this chat from Natalie Williams. Favre is reverse Robin Hood. He takes from the poor and gives to the rich. Yeah, he sure looks like he's got some of that going on. Yeah, I mean, that whole story, I mean, it at first, like, I was reading the story and it was just about, or what's these speeches, and then, he never gave the speeches and gave the money back. But then when you dig in more to the story, like, you just get hit with like issue after issue, and he's texting them to say, they got to do these buildings, and he's saying he'll give stock, and he was in it pretty deep. It wasn't just a few speeches, for sure. Thanks for this from Blunts and Otters. Kind of random, but does Be More Sabby have any thoughts on the media's insane slander of Lamar Jackson? He doesn't have an agent, and it drives them crazy. I'm not sure about that, but thanks for that. From Blunts and Otters. And this super sticker from JM. Thank you very much. And let me see here. Let me see if I can kick the tech around a little bit. We got another super chat on the old Rockfin. And guess who it's from? All right, from our main man, Mr. Roger Waters. Yeah, Mr. Roger Meadows. Let's kick this over. Thanks for this, Roger. Sab, you have to wonder how left Carter was if Teddy Kennedy primaried him. Remember, George McGovern, the Bernie of his day, won the primary to run against Nixon's second term. Dems were so enraged that they teamed up with Republicans to tank McGovern's campaign, and to make sure this never happens again, they invented the superdelegates. Thomas Frank said they used Carter to do it. 4 years later, he wins Democratic nomination. Yeah, I think you got some definite facts there, Roger, and you can definitely see in Thomas Frank's work, and he's very knowledgeable about those things. I've seen him in a lot of interviews, and he has good books out, Thomas Frank, about that history and how the Democratic Party just turned into this corporate party. And it was, at this point, both parties are basically the same. But thanks for those, Mr. Rogers. All right, back Roger Meadows. He got that tip money. Yeah, Roger called in yesterday, and he was doing his, he was out there working it with Uber, and working hard for the money, Mr. Roger. But he comes in with the comments. All right, let's see what else we. Oh, here we go. All right, I don't have to make up something else to say. One thing I did want to say was that with this story with Mississippi, you notice what's happening and why NBC is covering it. You see why? Because it's Republicans. They can point it all at the Republicans and the Republican governor. It's like, they're bad in the previous Republicans and everything.
Yeah,
that's why they're covering it.
Yep. That's a good point. Otherwise, you probably would never hear about this story because Flint was not covered for a while. For a while, it was just independent media talking about Flint.
All right.
Okay, we got all the ones on Rockfin.
Yep.
All right, guys, join me on Call-In. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. We're going to talk about this. Oh, thank you for the super chat with our eyes rise. Consciousness, peace, Uhuru, soul/soul family. Please go to fightthepower.company. Sign the petition for Black Force reparations /Black Force the vote. Then share. Thank you. Peace. Oh, you just reminded me of something in reference to Uhuru. They will be on next week. Yes, I can't believe I almost forgot to tell you guys about that. So I will be speaking to them in reference to the raid that they experienced recently from the FBI. So they're going to come on and talk about that. So I think I'm going to be speaking. I have to check the email. I think I'm going to be speaking to the chairman. So I look forward to that discussion. So yeah, definitely catch me next week for that. Guys, just a quick reminder. I am not here Monday night because I'll be coming back from New York from Camp Dada. So I'll just have clips uploaded for Monday, but then I'll be back live on Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. Go ahead and join me on Call-In, guys. I'm going to go ahead and open the room and I'll see you guys over there. All right, guys. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. And you know how we do this? Yeah, I mentioned that, Eric. Okay. Yeah, so no live show Monday, but I'll be back on Tuesday. But it's time to wrap up now. I'm headed out to New York tomorrow. Have a good night, guys. Keep up the fight.